Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Army of Thieves. Army of Thieves is an American heist thriller that serves as a prequel to Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, and tells the story of one of that film's characters, Dieter, known in this movie as Sebastian. He's an expert safecracker who works as a bank teller and lives a mundane existence in his hometown in Germany when he's approached by a thief named Gwendolyn. She explains that she and a group of other thieves with their own repertoire of skills are planning to break into a trio of safes designed by Hans Wagner, whose work Dieter is well acquainted with, and after giving it some thought, Dieter decides to join the crew to break into those safes before they're decommissioned in a week's time. I will admit that I had low expectations going into this movie due to not being overly impressed with Army of the Dead. I thought it would be a rehash of that movie's story but with more safes and less zombies, as advertised in its marketing. However, I'm happy to say that this movie fares much better in quality compared to its counterpart. The movie does benefit from being directed by its lead actor, Matthias Schweighöfer. His character Dieter was one of my favorite parts of Army of the Dead, and it's great to see a more detailed portrayal of him in this story. He's not exactly deep in terms of background, but there's enough backstory that's there to make you want to root for him and see him succeed. His enthusiasm is catchy to a point that you can almost feel it radiate off the screen, as he always cracks a smile while working and screams at the top of his lungs when he opens a safe. I swear, it's like he's experiencing nirvana every time he opens up one of those things. It really adds to the excitement of the heist. Even though he's probably the wimpiest character in the group, his positivity and courage in the face of danger made his character endearing. The other characters in the group are memorable in their own ways as well, some more than others though. The crew isn't as big this time around compared to the one in Army of the Dead, which I think is a good thing as it gives us more time to get to know each of them. The leader of the group, Gwendolyn, has excellent chemistry with Dieter as they come to share their personal lives with each other, and has a quiet confidence about her that gives assurance in her abilities as a leader. The others, as I mentioned earlier, have their own skills like Gwendolyn too. You've got the hacker, Karina, the getaway driver, Rolf, and the muscle in the form of Brad Cage. They don't have the same level of charisma as the other two, but they help shake up the movie's events, and it is nice to see the movie attempt to explore their backgrounds at least to some degree. When it comes to the heists themselves, they are done way better in this one than the one in Army of the Dead. This movie is filmed on a smaller scale compared to that one, so it makes sense that more attention to detail would be given in this area, but even taking this into consideration, I didn't realize how much detail they would have. Each safe as designed by Wagner has a different theme behind it relating to mythological figures and having their stories being represented in the order in which a safe is required to be cracked. This mythological aspect adds an air of mystery and gives more meaning to the heist as opposed to just hacking ordinary everyday safes. The way the thieves perform heists in this movie almost feels like a video game in terms of progression. The group faces increasingly dangerous odds as they go from one safe to the next, which builds suspense to their journey. The stakes are always rising, and it feels natural in how it all unfolds. It also helps that each safe is located in a different country within Europe and in a different style of building each time. One is featured in a French credit union, another in a Czech national bank, and the final one in a Swiss casino. The variety of settings and scenarios help keep the heist from becoming stale. Seeing the crew carry out each heist is always fun to watch, especially when things don't go as planned. While not necessarily an action movie per se, it is entertaining to see Brad Cage treated as one when the opportunity arises, and there's a few enjoyable brawls thrown in with Gwendolyn's badass persona for good measure. Even Dieter gets some time in the spotlight during these sequences, including a bike chase between himself and police officers across the streets of Prague. Simply put, when it comes to the heist, there's never a dull moment. But that's not to say that there aren't any dull moments whatsoever. Some of the negative elements from Army of the Dead rear their ugly head once again, but there's also a few others introduced that hampered the experience a bit for me. There's this Interpol agent named Delacroix who has an axe to grind against the thieves due to failing to arrest them in the past. I felt like the movie couldn't make up its mind if it wanted him to be taken seriously or simply just be comic relief. He's always one step behind the crew wherever they go, which is a good dramatic angle to play out, but he acts like an idiotic child in virtually every scene that he's in. He also has some of the dumbest dialogue in the whole movie, especially where it concerns his feud with Brad Cage, and it was impossible for me to take him seriously. Speaking of Brad Cage, he was another character that was a bit much for my taste. There's a history between him and Gwendolyn that's explored in parts throughout the story, which is fine, but it's never developed properly. It's obvious early on that a romance will develop between Gwendolyn and Dieter at some point, which again is fine. I'm not opposed to a romance, romance, but Brad makes things unnecessarily complicated between the two, which is disappointing considering how straightforward the rest of the movie is. The comedic elements were a bit more of a mixed bag for me. They didn't bother me as much as other parts of the movie did, but they still could have used some improvement. A lot of the humor stems from Dieter's wimpy persona and him screaming a lot, and that carries over from Army of the Dead and is funny at first, but it starts to get old after a while. All this being said though, like I said, the movie does benefit from not being directed by Zack Snyder this time around, and I say that as a fan of his work. It's less jumbled and bloated and has a lot more focus in its narrative structure. I would have liked to see a bit more of a connection between this movie and Army of the Dead, as zombies don't really have anything to do with what's happening in this one. They are there to an extent, but they're more or less a backdrop to flesh out this movie's world, which I can respect in hindsight. Overall, Army of Thieves is a surprisingly fun ride from beginning to end. Its heist scenes, likable characters, and variety of locales make it superior to its predecessor, or successor, depending on how you look at it. If you enjoy heist thrillers and you're looking for one that has a European flavor to it, combined with unique characters and set pieces, this one definitely delivers. Its connection to Army of the Dead is loose, but I think that's to its benefit. Taking one of many characters from it and centering a whole movie around him is no easy feat, but thanks to Schweighofer's direction, it pays off in spades. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Army of Thieves. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Dutch Christmas movie, The Claus Family. Bye bye!